Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating. Before we get started, we just want to do a sound check to make sure that you can hear us okay. So if you can hear me speaking, you can raise your hand. That lets me know that the audio is working. Great. Thank you. And if you don't mind lowering your hand, that way we know that it wasn't for the sound check and it was for providing comments. So, okay. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for attending the State Board of Pharmacy stakeholder meeting via webinar. Today is June 14th, 2021, and the time is 9:01 a.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Darcy Magnuson, and I'm a regulatory analyst with the division. Also attending is Dimitri Kunin, Senior Program Director for the division, and Elena Kemp, Regulatory Coordinator. We will be facilitating this stakeholder meeting today. In compliance with the governor's orders regarding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we do like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue to practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the board as it considers adopting revisions to the rules. More specifically, today we will be discussing new and revised rules that will provide clarity and a general cleanup of the rules, and new and revised rules to implement Senate Bill 21-122, Senate Bill 21-123, Senate Bill 21-011, and potentially Senate Bill 21-094, which is pending signature by the governor. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the board's website by the close of business tomorrow. As this stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, please raise your hand by using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you'll be heard by everyone. Or you can type your comment in the question section. We will read it aloud. Before we start taking comments, I want to ask that anyone providing comments, please state your name and who you represent. Feel free to provide either general comments on rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. We will procedurally, since there are a number of rules that will be discussed today, we will walk through revisions by rule and call for comments on each rule. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine and will be noted. If you're using audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises to a minimum when speaking. So at this point in time, we will start taking comments from stakeholders who are participating today. The first rule, as you are seeing it on the screen right now, is 1.00.18, patient counseling. If anyone has any comments on the proposed new language and changes within that rule. Okay, we have a couple of hands. I'll start with Emily Zadborny. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm just pulling up my notes. Sorry. And I submitted, thank you, by the way. This is Emily Zadborny with the Colorado Pharmacists Society. I did submit some comments in writing as well for the board members, but just thought I would jump on and say them in person as well. So this is section 1.0018B in the patient counseling section, and we would recommend the word following instead of preceding patient counseling, since that would be the 2 years after the refusal, not before. And that was my only comment. Thank you.
Do we have that correct? Is it proceeding or did you want following?
So I think it should be following.
Okay.
My understanding is, if they refuse, then you would keep that on the records for 2 years after that date of refusal.
Okay. Thank you. Looking to see, Emily, I'm going to lower your hand in case you have other comments. Looking to see if we have any other hands raised. I don't see any other hands raised, so we will move on to 1.00.24. The statutory citation edition. So we can keep going on. (2.01.10). Any comments on this new subsection? I'm not seeing any hands, but only if I'm missing anyone, let me know. I think we can move on to the next. 2.01.20. Okay, we have a couple of hands raised here, so we can go ahead and pause. Emily Zadvorny, you are unmuted on our end, self-muted.
Hi, thank you. So for this section 2.01.20C and then number 5, not a big deal, but we would just recommend instead of intentional drug class substitution, just therapeutic drug class substitution, and require also the reason for substitution and the pharmacist initials.
Hi, good morning. This is Elena. I just wanted to clarify your comment. You want to change the section to just using the word intentional drug class substitution, so taking the word therapeutic out and adding the pharmacist's initials, correct?
Yeah, correct, Elena, and also the reason for substitution. Sorry, Alina, remove the word intentional. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. I'm taking one quick look to see if we have any other, Chris Gasson. Hi, Chris, you're unmuted.
Yes, this is Chris Gasson from Dora. Can you go to the top of this section for me, please? Can you scroll that back up, please? Okay, that's good. I just wanted to double check something. Okay, so I wanted to make a comment about the initials of the pharmacist. I think we need to be really careful because there are some companies that use what's called a unique identifier, whereby they don't use initials of the pharmacist, but rather they use a unique identifier in lieu of initials. So if you're going to have the initials of the pharmacist, you might want to also add initials or unique identifier, because not only would that be consistent with what some pharmacies do, but it's also consistent with the language throughout our rules regarding the use of the word initials or unique identifier. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? That wants to provide comments. And Emily Zadvorny comments, anything that would identify the pharmacist would be fine with CPS. Happy with that consistency. Thank you, Emily. Chris, go ahead.
This is Chris Gasson again. That is, I'm fine with you putting that in A, but I would also make that clear in C5 as to unique identifier. So when you made, when you had the, on the comment under C5, where you had the initials of the pharmacist, I would insert or unique identifier in addition to the initials of the pharmacist. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
This is Elaine again. Darcy, did you want to just insert the actual changes into these rules? Or just use them as comments for now?
Whatever's easiest. You can do either one. And we can save the draft after, so whatever works best.
Okay.
I think we can move on, Elena, and then go back to these then. So 3.00.21 under dispensing. Does anyone have any comments regarding these proposed changes? Okay, 3.00.22. Three 3.01.22 filling of automated cassettes. Three 3.03.10. Five 5.00.01. Five 5.00.10. 5.00.17.
This is Chris Gaston. Oh, I'm
Hey,
sorry.
Chris, sorry.
No problem. I think 5.00.17, it may need to be aligned over to the left, consistent with the formatting of the other rules. It seems to be indented in.
I agree, Chris.
But thank you. Perfect, thanks. Or, yeah, okay, I see where you're going. There you go. Thank you.
Five 5.00.19. Okay. 5.00.40. Five 5.00.50. 5.00.55. 5.00.60. Moving on to Rule 7. 7.00.30. Rule 9, 9.00.10, Rule 14, 14.00.05,
Looks like we have a hand raised. Ms. Zadporni,
yes,
unmute your line.
go ahead. Emily Zadborny.
There we go.
There you
Sorry,
go.
I'm having trouble unmuting. Sorry, this is actually Rule 11. Is that still okay to go back and comment on that one?
Of course.
Okay, sorry, it's 11.04.10. And we would just recommend a change where it says, unless the prescription drug outlet has received written board approval to not retain, to just be substituted unless the prescription drug outlet retains electronic prescription orders. And I think that's so that it's consistent with the language passed, and I know it hasn't been signed by the governor, but Senate Bill 094, Section 19, and I can give you the whole citation in the comment section, but that now states the board shall allow electronic storage of records required to be maintained pursuant to this section.
So it doesn't look like we have that rule noticed on this draft. So just so we can make sure that we are including it, you said it was Rule 11. What was the rule number?
Yeah, 11.04. 11.04.10. I can copy and paste it, my comments into the chat if you want.
Okay. That would actually
Thank you. Yeah, and again, all of these comments I'll be providing today, we did submit in written form as well. That'll probably be easier to follow.
Yes, that would definitely be helpful. Thank you.
Chris Gasson, hold on one second. Let me get you unmuted. Chris Gasson.
Yes. Rule 11 already allows for the electronic maintenance of Schedules 2, 3 through 5, and non-controlled substance orders. We have already addressed that. What the board simply did was put conditions for approval of the electronic maintenance. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what the bill authorized the board to do, was to allow for the electronic maintenance of orders, which the board has already done. What the board simply did was put conditions for the approval of the electronic maintenance for things such as retrievability and so forth. So I'm not sure I understand why there would need to be an amendment to Rule 11 if the board has already allowed for the electronic maintenance of orders, as the bill has already contemplated.
Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna, it looks like Emily, believe this is a follow-up. So I'm gonna unmute you. Or I'm not sure.
There we go. Hi. Hey, thanks, Chris. Appreciate your comments. We continue to get stakeholder feedback from our membership that they are still not getting approved for those, or there's barriers to getting the approval from the board with their processes. So I don't know the details. I can certainly try to find some more out or bring those stakeholders to bring more detail to you guys, but that's just why it went into 94, was that they're continuing to have problems.
Oh, and I understand that, and I mean, and I can attest for a number of chains that have already received historically have received approval, and they're utilizing the electronic maintenance to this day. I mean, I guess keep in mind that we can rework that, but there's still going to be conditions. I mean, there's just simple fundamental conditions such as retrievability. I mean, just electronically maintaining something isn't going to be quite enough for the board. They're going to expect retrievability of those orders. And so, you know, I understand the concerns, I do, but just know that I expect that the board is still going to have conditions with electronic maintenance of orders. And there is always going to be that pharmacy that may not be able to comply with all of those conditions. But that board staff consistently and really constantly works with pharmacies to eventually get to electronic maintenance. But that many, I mean, and I'm speaking for hundreds of pharmacies that have had no problem getting approval for the electronic maintenance of orders and have been utilizing it for many years now.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
It looks like Gina Moore also has a raised hand. So Gina, you are self-muted.
All right, I think I unmuted myself. Thank you. Yes, Chris, the comments we heard during, and sorry, Gina Moore, and I'm CU, but I'm representing the Colorado Pharmacists Society, and I led the CPS task force with the rules that all of our membership wanted to see. And the request that we got, in addition, I just wanted to chime in addition to what Emily had already said, is not so much the rules around retrievability and the ability to comply with that, but the need to get prior approval was something that they asked that specifically be removed, that provided that they could comply with the retrievability and the other conditions the board wished to see, that they wish to have the prior approval removed. So that was the intent with including that particular provision in sunset. Thank you.
And I can just comment that will have to be a policy decision of the board. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the board in that regard. I can just tell you historically that it has taken a number of pharmacies a couple of attempts to get to the point to where it meets the conditions of the rule as to retrievability. And the prior approval process has not been, you know, particularly cumbersome. I mean, from where I sit, you just simply go into a pharmacy and make sure that they can comply with the conditions outlined not only in the rule but also the policy, and then we send them a letter. But if the intent is to get the prior approval removed, I would go ahead and post it as a comment as you have and just see what the board says. But I see where you're going. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay. Just taking one final look. So where we move back down to, I believe we were on rule 14 or 15, I think it was where we had ended. Elena, I trust you, so if you're stopping and you think that's where we left off.
Yes, that's the section that we left off on. But I don't see we have any hands raised, so we will proceed.
Okay, rule 15, 15.01.00. I don't see any hands raised. 15.09.00. 15.09.11. 15.09.12. 15.09.14. 15.10.00. 'Elena, this is Darcy. My computer froze, so if you want to call rule numbers for just a until my computer comes back up.
Sure thing. So now we're on 15.0010 or maybe 15.10.10. Actually, the only changes in this rule are in section L. So moving on to collaborative pharmacy practice, Rule 17.0010.10. Okay, I see we have a question. Miss Julie Ra. Her comment is she would like to also comment on Rule 11.0410. And since we're kind of moving down, if you don't mind, I would like to continue to go through the rules, and then we can return to that rule, and we will unmute your line, and you can speak, and then we can capture your comments. And it looks like we have a hand raised. Okay, I've got Miss Emily Zadwarny. I'm going to unmute your line.
Hi, thanks again. Just wanted to comment on 17.00.10A, and I put this in the chat as well for you. But so the new definition, pharmacist care services, we believe should not be located under Rule 17 because those definitions apply to any pharmacist practicing any setting that provide those services. It's not specific to collaborative practice agreements, and that term originates as a new definition in statute passed in Senate Bill 094. So it's defined there and established as part of the practice of pharmacy in new language there. So, like putting it under Rule 17 could be misleading to pharmacists, thinking that they had to have collaborative practice to perform those duties.
Thank you. And we also have a hand raised by Miss Julie Ra. I'm unmuting your line. Good morning.
Hello, my hand was raised for section 11.04.10, so we can revisit that at the end. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Sure thing. Okay. Thank you.
Emily, this is Dimitri. Was wondering if there's a section that you had thought where it applies more, and then also if it were to stay in this section, would clearing up that concern, would you consider, like at the end of the second sentence, a comma which may or may not include collaborative care agreements or something of that sort?
Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. I was kind of struggling, and maybe I can look back at rules to see. I didn't know if it needed to be in rule, to be honest with you, just because it's a new definition of the practice of pharmacy. So it's definitely in statute, in the Practice Act. Oh, sorry for the other noise behind me here. But I am afraid if we leave it here under Rule 17 that, if someone didn't look back at statute and see that that was under the definition of practice of pharmacy, that they would think that only applied in collaborative practice, even if you added that extra wording. I think just having it located here might be misleading. I don't know. I'm not sure where it would ideally go.
Okay. If it did say that, would it be helpful then to say which may or may not include collaborative, like something of the sort to ensure that clarity is there?
I think if it had to stay there, that would help.
Okay.
But if it didn't have to stay there, I think that would be the best case scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if we don't have any other comments, we're going to continue. So rule 21.00.00 compounding. And it looks like there's just cleanup of the rules in this section where the 2 zeros before 21 were, that was actually inserted in the rules, were removed. And then the changes to 21.00.20. Subsection A is being removed, and the following rules, just cleaning up the numbering. Subsections F and G are also being removed. As with H and I. Looks like we have a hand raised, Ms. Julie Ra. Good morning.
I'm sorry, I was trying to lower my hand from the previous comment. I apologize.
No worries, I can do that for you. Thank you. Rule 21.11.10. A couple changes in subsection C. Rule 21.21.70. Labeling of CSPMs or CSPs. Rule 29.00.50 regarding pharmacy technicians. Okay, I don't show any hands raised, so we'll continue to move down through the rules. And once again, if you are joining the webinar late, we're just kind of going through each rule and asking for comments. And if you've missed a rule that you do want to speak on, we will be returning to all the previous rules towards the end, or once we go through them. All right, Appendix C. Correct? Yes. In Appendix C, there were a couple changes. This is more of the cleanup changes. So I'll kind of go fast because there's only two changes. The first change is to update the webinar link, which is shown on the screen. And the second change is to remove notes that were in the previous draft when these rules were originally, or when they were changed. I want to say last year. That was just a comment here that was overlooked. And so the board is cleaning them up. Okay, that brings us to the end of the rule changes. So I'm going to go back to the marker we have for Rule 11. And Ms. Ra, I will be unmuting your line in just 1 second. Hi, Ms. Julie Ra, your line is unmuted.
Hi, my name is Julie Wright on behalf of King Supers Pharmacy. I would like to second Emily's comments, but also explain why, in the spirit of sunset, asking the board to modernize paper hard copy filing to free up time for patient care in regards to conditions on retrievability and the board approval. This is something that the Colorado mandates, but other states are more lenient on how each entity maintains those electronic prescriptions and just ask for consideration of the wording as regards to Senate Bill 21094, Section 19.
Okay, and just to clarify your comment, this was regarding retrievability. And
so as Chris stated, and Chris, you commented, and if you feel the need, but the conditions on retrievability and the board-approved process are what we are looking to change to be more modernized in how we have electronic prescriptions stored in our computer systems, as all of these computer systems are very different, and being able to have that board-approved process for the state of Colorado specifically, and looking for modernization in how that is done.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to see, and I know this is outside of what Emily said, is that board approval wording be removed.
Okay, thank you. All right. And if there's any other roles that any of the stakeholders that's joining us today wants to speak on, oh, looks like Chris Gadsden has a comment. I'm going to unmute your line now. Good morning.
Morning. And I appreciate the comments on Rule 11. I think one of the main concerns from the board historically as to the retrievability of orders is being able to look at all of the information on a computer screen and not having to go through multiple windows to get to the same information that you would normally find on a regular hard copy. And to be able to view a number of prescription orders, like during the inspection process or any other process, at the same rate that one would if they were looking at hard copies. I mean, if computer systems have become so advanced and a lot of pharmacies have been able to comply with the current requirements, I guess I'm struggling to find out, I'm struggling what the issue is in terms of, I mean, what's the barrier, I guess is the question I have for Julie.
So Chris, our barrier is, this is something that Colorado is asking, and the technology update for a company that is national, when it's one state, and seeing that other states don't require this board approval process on how they store their electronic prescriptions. That is why we're asking for more of a modernization. The act of filing prescriptions in patient care, we'd like to spend more time on patient care than filing the electronic prescriptions if we are unable to get a board approved process through our computer system that meets your requirements.
Okay, so the question, I mean, so from what I'm gathering, it's not just the initial board approval, it's the conditions of the board approval, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and of those conditions of the board approval, what conditions is King Super struggling with?
To obtain a single place to view those prescriptions in a readily retrievable fashion. That requires the reporting to be generated for just the state of Colorado. And it has to be built in IT, I think that's the best way that I can explain it. And Chris, we can talk offline if you would like to as well.
Okay.
That's the best way I can explain the concerns that we have regarding this rule and why we want it to be put in sunset.
And just keep in mind that the amendment that was made in sunset simply allowed the board to promulgate rules on the electronic maintenance of orders. And that is what the board has done. And so removing that, putting that bill aside, your issue is with the specific existing rule, which already allows for the electronic maintenance of orders. Your issue is with the conditions of the approval.
Conditions on retrievability. Right?
Conditions on retrievability. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for everyone's comments. Oh, I have a hand raised by Ms. Kim Ward. I'm unmuting your line. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. So Kim Ward, just representing myself. I no longer represent King Soopers specifically, but this is a longstanding area of passion of mine as a licensed Colorado pharmacist. So just wanted to share in this same area of rule around electronic storage. You know, many pharmacies can store electronic prescriptions electronically as they're designed to be. I think the challenge is meeting the board approved and preferred manner of generating that report. That's really the barrier in, you know, creating that retrievable report in the format that the board wants. But electronic storage, not a problem. Already have that in place in most all pharmacies in the state. It's just generating that report in the very specific way that the board wants it. As Julie alluded to, you know, the technology advancements needed within various dispensing systems to generate a very specific report. I think that is the barrier. And I guess my question, just to understand the background a bit better, is, you know, as the inspectors are inspecting hard copies, what is the policy or the history of that, and what are they looking for? Because in a quick, you know, skim of the rules and in my brain, I don't see a policy or any discipline around errors needing to be reported to the board. So what are the inspectors looking for when they're reviewing those hard copies, which kind of gets at the why of why we have to retain them? Of course, we retain them for insurance reasons and because the rules and the laws say we do, but what is the board looking for? And maybe that's the ultimate barrier that we're all trying to overcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hopefully I captured your comments correctly. And if you'd like to submit comments, written comments, that would be very helpful as well to make sure that I'm not just moving too swiftly through the stakeholder meeting.
And Chris has a follow-up comment on Kim's. I'm not seeing Chris on my list. Elena, can you unmute Chris?
Yeah.
I'm here. So I can explain the history and what the inspectors are looking for. In other words, I think I can answer that question. When the inspectors look at prescription orders, they want to make sure they're checking for the validity of the order, but they're also checking to see that the order was entered in properly, because there are times during inspections that we find that the wrong drug was entered, or that the wrong directions were put in place, were typed in. So when we're inspecting prescription orders, we're inspecting for a number of elements: legality, validity, whether or not it was entered in properly. And we do that in a fairly rapid succession. So if you're going through hard copy orders, we're flipping through them at a very rapid rate. and I think the board's intent when they put those rules and that policy in place was that, yes, we believe in the electronic maintenance of orders, but we still want to be able to see the same information and at the same rate as we would if they were hard copy orders. So I guess what I'm saying is that the board was never opposed to the electronic maintenance of orders. They just wanted their inspectors to be able to view the information on those orders, the same information, and then at the same rate that one would if we were looking at hard copy orders. And we're confident that a number of large pharmacies, and I'm not going to name them, but a number of large pharmacies have been able to accomplish that, and have been able to accomplish that for quite some time now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't show any other hands raised.
I did one final look as well, Elena, and I don't see anyone either. So with that, I think it would be appropriate to conclude. So thank you for participating in today's meeting. As part of this collaborative rulemaking process, all comments and recommendations will be provided to the board to review and discuss at the board meeting on July 15th, 2021. And all board comments will be presented to the board during the next stakeholder meeting on August 19th, 2021. The board will deliberate the final version of the rules at the permanent rulemaking hearing, which is tentatively scheduled for September 30th, 2021. Just to give a little bit more information, when the board reviews and discusses your comments from today and other written comments that were received at the meeting on July 15th, 2021, there will be no public comment period. So you'll have another opportunity to provide comments at the stakeholder meeting on August 19th, and then you'll have an opportunity to testify at the rulemaking hearing on September 30th. We will continue to accept written comments throughout this entire period of time, so please feel free to submit those as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on when the public will have an opportunity to address the board, and that will be at the rulemaking hearing on September 30th. The sooner you get the comments in, the better, because like I mentioned, the board will have a chance to review those on July 15th and weigh in on the comments before the stakeholder meeting on August 19th. So that helps with the collaborative process to go back and forth between stakeholders and the board. That concludes the stakeholder meeting. We thank you again for your participation, and we are going to end the webinar now.